Danish Moazzam Minhas returned to his Houston apartment and found his mother lying lifeless in the living room. She had been struck more than 30 times with a sharp object. Hours later, police were at his door. To outsiders, Danish was a success story in the making. Born in 1992 and raised by a single mother, Tabassum Khan, he was class president at Lee High School, popular, but at home, life told a different story. Tabassum, a Pakistani immigrant and devout Muslim, enforced strict household rules. Danish began to feel suffocated. He argued with her about money, freedom, and his desire for independence. The night before her life was taken, Danish spent time with a date, driving around Galveston. Early the next morning, he came home and found her. She was found unresponsive, and efforts to help her were unsuccessful. What began as a family tragedy quickly turned into a criminal investigation. Investigators soon uncovered that Danish had planned what happened. He hired a classmate, Nurjay Mohammed, who was 18 at the time. Danish offered him $4,000. Some of that money came from his mother's savings. Mohammed agreed to carry out the plan. He wore rubber gloves, but they tore during the struggle. When he left, he had left a bloody handprint on the door handle. Weeks later, Mohammed was arrested for possessing illegal substances. Detectives got a confession from him. He admitted carrying out the fatal act and taking money from Danish. 2 days after that confession, police arrested Danish and another teen, Kevin Haney. Haney had accepted red-stained cash and helped clean up evidence. Danish and Mohammed faced top-level homicide charges. While in custody, Danish insisted he had no part in what happened. He told officers that his mother was perfect and that he loved her. Investigators believed he wanted to escape her rules. He reportedly told one officer, "I love my mother to death," perhaps meaning it in a literal way. In early 2010, both teens stood before a judge. Mohammed agreed to plead guilty in return for a recommendation of 40 years behind bars. He also offered to testify against Danish. At trial, Mohammed described how Danish drove him to the apartment and signaled when it was time to go inside. He said Danish showed no regret afterward. When asked if Danish ever seemed sorry, Mohammed replied, "No, he just smiled." Danish kept claiming he was innocent. Still, in February 2014, at age 21, he changed course. He pleaded guilty to the most serious charge before Judge Jim Wallace. Facing the possibility of spending his whole life in prison, he accepted a fixed 50-year sentence. Mohammed was already set to serve 40 years under his agreement. With that plea in place, Danish was formally given 50 years to serve, with a chance for early release later on. He is held at the Mark Stiles unit in Texas. Because he was 17 when it happened, he started as a juvenile but was handled as an adult due to the severity of his actions. The next teenagers didn't just obey gang rules, they worshipped something darker. Diego Hernandez Rivera came from El Salvador. He arrived in the U.S. as a teenager without proper papers. He joined MSE 13. That group is known for extreme behavior and unusual rituals. At the time of the incident, he was living in Houston, Texas. He worked closely with gang leader Miguel Angel Alvarez Flores. In court, people called him Diabolico. Both he and Alvarez Flores moved here without documents. They followed extreme beliefs. They set up a small shrine in their apartment. They treated a statue they called the Beast as an object of worship. That mix of gang rules and dark symbols drew in young people who were easy to influence. In January 2017, a 15-year-old girl named Genesis Cornejo Alvarado went missing from her home in Jersey Village, Houston. On February 16, 2017, her remains were found on Sharpcrest Street in southwest Houston. Investigators saw 2 gunshot wounds at very close range, one to the head and one to the chest. At first, no one knew who she was. Around the same time, a 14-year-old girl ran away from school and was taken to that same apartment. Alvarez Flores, Hernandez Rivera, and others held her against her will for more than a month. They forced her to drink and use other substances. They pressured her into unwanted acts. Alvarez Flores even gave her a tattoo against her will. That girl said Genesis was there too. Genesis spoke out against the apartment shrine. That set off a fatal chain of events. The survivor said Genesis spoke up because she thought the shrine was wrong. When Genesis criticized it, Alvarez Flores flew into a rage. He lit a cigarette and held it up to the statue. He said the figure did not want things like tobacco. It wanted a human soul instead. A short time later, Genesis disappeared from the apartment. Her remains were later found by the roadside. One day, the surviving girl managed to escape and told police what had happened. Officers went to the apartment and arrested Hernandez Rivera and Alvarez Flores. At trial, prosecutors said Hernandez Rivera took a gun and fired at Genesis. Alvarez Flores had quietly told him, "Get ready, it's your turn now." That was a direct order to end her life. Hernandez Rivera used the gun outside the apartment. They had lured her out by saying they were going to meet someone who sold substances. At their first court appearance, both men smiled and waved at the cameras. Many people were shocked. It seemed like they did not understand how serious this was. The state accused Hernandez Rivera of planning and carrying out Genesis's loss of life. They also accused him of holding her against her will. He and Alvarez Flores admitted their guilt. On May 26, 2021, a judge sentenced Hernandez Rivera to 40 years in prison for taking her life. The judge handed down 12 extra years for his role with the weapon during the event. Both terms run at the same time, so he will serve 40 years. Some wonder if those rituals really drove him, or if they were just a cover for gang activities. In court, prosecutors talked a lot about the dark ceremonies. They said it looked like a ritual tied to the apartment shrine. But the survivor's story also shows that gang rules, peer pressure, and fear were big factors. How did things go from threats to taking a life? It happened after Genesis spoke out against the shrine. Alvarez Flores gave the order, and Hernandez Rivera followed it. He did not act out of sudden anger on his own. Today, Hernandez Rivera remains in custody in Texas. He was 18 at the time of the incident. He will stay behind bars into his mid-50s, unless he is released early. Up next is $250. One reminder, several shots. Jesse Canones lived in Houston. He went to AC, a school that helps students return to regular classes. When he was 17, he and Patrick Aldape, also 17, knew each other from school. Both of them had handled guns and talked about money. On the night of April 13, 2017, just before midnight, Jesse met Patrick in a cul-de-sac on Slumberwood Drive in the North Shore area. Jesse had just fixed Patrick's shotgun. He wrapped it in a towel and handed it back. That's when Patrick reminded Jesse he still owed $250 for the repair. Jesse said he needed to go get the cash. Instead of coming right back, he drove a few blocks away. A little while later, he returned with a 9mm pistol of his own. He rolled down his car window, aimed at Patrick, and fired several times. Jesse later told investigators that because Patrick was screaming, he had to finish it. Why did Jesse fire at someone over a reminder about money? It seems it wasn't just about $250. He wanted control and felt fear. He could have paid right away, but he chose to use his gun. That choice ended Patrick's life that night. After the shots, Jesse drove off. About a mile and a half away, he lost control of the car and crashed on the 500 block of Federal Drive. He left the gun and the wrecked car behind. Meanwhile, a friend of Patrick's rushed him to a nearby hospital, but he did not pull through. A few days later, Jesse walked into a Houston police station and admitted what he had done. Homicide detectives finished their investigation and charged him with a first-degree offense in Harris County. By then, he was 19. Rather than face a life sentence, in January 2023, Jesse took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to a lesser charge. The deal gave him 35 years in prison. He must serve at least half of that before he can ask for freedom on parole. He cannot appeal the conviction or the sentence. At sentencing, the district attorney said it's becoming an epidemic. An assistant prosecutor added that the plea deal was important for Patrick's family to find closure. This case shows how a small debt tied to guns can spiral out of control when teens feel threatened. Jesse brought his own weapon to settle up on another. Patrick's simple reminder set off fear or anger. Instead of paying or talking things through, Jesse came back armed and calm. His own words, "I had to finish it." At 17, Jesse faced a simple reminder about money and chose to settle it with force. He was caught between teen money drama and illegal guns. His decision cost a classmate his life and changed Jesse's future forever. Could paying that $250 have kept Patrick alive? Maybe. But Jesse's fear or defiance took over. Today, he's serving 35 years in a Texas prison, with the earliest chance for parole only after at least 17 and a half years behind bars. The next victim was 17. The suspect, just 16. And the court did something it almost never does. Javi McDwell was 16. He lived in Houston, Texas. In late October 2024, he was accused of taking part in a shooting that caused the loss of a young person's life. The victim was 17-year-old Isaiah Avila. The Houston police said McDwell was one of 3 teens linked to an incident in the parking lot of an apartment complex on Fulton Street. Details about his family and early years are not public. His personal history remains protected until the legal process is complete. So far, he has no prior record. On October 29, 2024, around 11:50 a.m., officers arrived at the 2901 Fulton Street complex. They found Isaiah Avila in the driver's seat of his car. He had been shot and was in critical condition. Paramedics confirmed he had passed away at the scene. The police have not confirmed a motive. Isaiah's mother thinks it was a theft attempt. She believes her son was targeted because of his new vehicle. Investigators are looking into whether the shooting was planned or if another reason was behind it. After the incident, investigators identified 3 teens in the case. 2 were taken into custody by juvenile authorities in Harris County. McDwell stayed at large for months. In an unusual move for a juvenile case, a judge in the 314th District Court ordered the release of McDwell's name and photo in February 2025. Authorities called him a major public safety threat. That allowed them to break the usual confidentiality rules for teen suspects. As of now, McDwell is still wanted. No trial has taken place yet. That means there is no decision, no final words, or recorded requests for a last meal. This case stands out because McDwell's identity was revealed. Texas law usually keeps teen identities private. This is to help with rehabilitation and avoid lasting stigma. But the court made a different choice. They cited the seriousness of the incident and the risk McDwell posed if he remained at large. This case suggests a worrying pattern. In Harris County, teen involvement in fatal incidents doubled. It went from about 20-25 per year to 49 in 2024. Authorities find this rise alarming. Most of the people who lost their lives were also teens. The next case started as a car break-in. It ended with a fatal shot. Broderick DeLance Knight was 17 and lived in Houston, Texas. He took part in a car burglary incident in southeast Houston in mid-December 2016. His case drew attention when he faced a top-level homicide charge in the shooting of 22-year-old Carla Marisol Carrias. Very little is known about Knight's home life or upbringing. Media reports focused almost entirely on what happened. His mother insisted he did not pull the trigger. She was arranging legal help as the case moved forward. On the night of December 13th into the early hours of December 14th, Knight and another person carried out at least 2 break-ins near Hobby Airport. Around midnight, they approached a man parked at Down Park. They tried to take his belongings. A language mix-up led him to hand over his pants before running away. The 2 still forced him to give up his vehicle, his wallet, and his bank cards. A few hours later, they went after a second car. It was a Camaro parked outside Carla's boyfriend's apartment on Kingsway Drive. Carla, her boyfriend, and his father spotted the intruders. The pair ran off in a black Nissan. During their getaway, someone, believed to be Knight, leaned out and fired 1 round. That bullet struck Carla in the chest. She was rushed to Memorial Hermann Hospital, but did not survive. Knight was arrested on December 27th after officers stopped the stolen Nissan. During that traffic stop, he reportedly admitted to both break-ins and to firing the shot. What led him to open fire? Everything points to a chance-based decision. They were trying to steal cars and valuables. When they were caught, panic set in and they tried to flee. Prosecutors described the shot as part of a desperate attempt to escape. Neighbors called the whole event senseless, over a car, underlining how minor the original target was. Public records end after the first court dates. Knight was held without bond. He appeared in court on December 30th. There is no public record of a full trial, any verdict, or a final judgment. Prosecutors later would call him a normal kid who did a horrible thing. Amadal TaB El-Numan Modawi was a teenager working as a valet driver in Houston. He came from Sudan. His mother won a green card through the lottery and brought him to the United States at age 11 to escape fighting back home. He and his family practiced Islam devoutly. By October 2021, he was earning cash at Cafe Mawal with no official employment records. The restaurant later said he was never on the payroll. Neighbors remembered him as mischievous, and some had called the police about him before. His father spoke of deep sadness after what happened. Before that night, Amadal TaB had no record of wrongdoing. On October 1st, 2021, he took a customer's 2013 Infiniti G37 without asking. Video showed him spinning the wheels and burning rubber in a parking lot near Prospect Park. A police sergeant turned on lights and siren to stop him. Instead of pulling over, he sped off. He wove through quiet streets at about 60 miles per hour, nearly double the limit. As he tore down Fairdale Lane, he ran into 3 valet workers who were walking back to the sports bar after parking cars. The 3, 18-year-old Fanon Michaud, 22-year-old Eric Orduna, and 23-year-old Nick Rodriguez, lost their lives at the scene. The car flipped into a ditch. Pieces flew onto nearby roofs. Hair and teeth were pressed into the windshield. Modawi and his teenage co-worker, who was riding with him, both broke their legs. They were taken to the hospital and were in stable condition. Investigators said he was not under the influence of different substances. You might wonder why a 17-year-old would risk this. His lawyers later said he was paid off the books, had no formal training, and lacked adult supervision. They argued that if the job had been handled properly, this could have been avoided. After turning 18, Modawi faced 3 counts of taking lives and 1 count of causing serious harm with a vehicle. Prosecutors asked for 35 years, saying a lighter sentence would send the wrong message. He pleaded guilty in March 2023. At his hearing on June 30th, 2023, Judge Chris Morton said this was a case of a normal kid making choices he could not undo. He denied probation, saying it would neither help Modawi nor warn others. He spoke of how awful the day was, but also said Modawi could still change. The judge imposed 10 years in prison to run all at once. That means Modawi could ask for early release after about 5 years. The courtroom fell silent. Some family members spoke of forgiveness. Others spoke of pain that will never go away. After sentencing, Modawi was moved from Harris County Jail. He is set to transfer to a state prison. Separate lawsuits are still filed against him, the valet service, Prospect Park, and premium parking services. His team says the adults who hired him illegally share some of the blame. Was the next tragedy a family dispute or gang loyalty gone too far? Adil Sandival was 17 years old. He lived in southwest Houston, Texas. Court papers say he and his older brother, Juan Trejo Sandival, argued on the evening of November 5, 2024. Around 6:45 p.m., they went to the laundry room at the Tierra del Sol Apartments on Cook Road. 2 other 17-year-olds were there too, Eddie Gomez and Jonathan Hernandez. No one knows exactly why the argument started. It might have been harsh words over something personal, or it could have involved gang ties. Prosecutors later said Adil may have had links to MS-13. That suggests possible gang tensions. As things heated up, shots were fired. Gomez and Hernandez were found inside the laundry room with non-recoverable injuries. Juan Trejo Sandival was found just outside the room. He was taken to Taub General Hospital with life-ending wounds and later passed away. Adil was the only one left alive among the 4. Police arrived and began their work right away. Witnesses spoke with detectives. Security cameras were also checked. These led officers to identify Adil as the person who fired the shots. On November 6, 2024, Houston police arrested him without any trouble. He was booked into the Harris County Jail. The next day, November 7th, he was formally charged with a serious homicide offense in the 177th State District Court. The charges covered the lives lost that night: Gomez, Hernandez, and Juan Trejo Sandival. In his first court appearance, prosecutors asked that he stay behind bars without bail. They pointed to the severity of the charges and the possible gang link. On November 8, 2024, the judge agreed. Adil remained in custody while his case moved forward. What led him to open fire? Was it a sudden burst of anger, or a planned move tied to loyalty or revenge? The public records don't say. They only mention that a personal dispute got out of hand. The note about MS-13 suggests prosecutors thought gang factors played a role, but no proof of planning or orders from the gang has been shared publicly. The case moved into the pre-trial phase. Adil's lawyers likely prepared defenses and filed motions, but as of mid-2025, there is no public record of a trial, plea agreement, or sentence. News outlets describe this as a tragic triple shooting with 1 teen survivor. 2 of the victims were 17, and the third was 23, possibly a relative. Adil was the only person still alive. Investigators noted the possible MS-13 connection, but no official confirmation has been released. The next victim walked the dog. Only the dog came home, covered in red stains. Frank Deleon Jr. was a teenager from the Houston area. In January 2022, he shot and left his ex-girlfriend, 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez, with life-ending injuries. The news shook the community. It led to a dramatic court scene in 2023. Very little is known about his early life. His exact birth date, family background, and upbringing aren't publicly available. What we do know is that he and Diamond had dated for about 6 months before the incident. When Diamond found out he was seeing someone else, she texted her sister. "We came to the field. I told him I would only talk to him in the field." She then disappeared while walking her dog, Peanut. Here's what happened on the night of January 11th, 2022. Diamond left home after getting a text from Frank asking her to meet at a nearby field in southwest Houston. She was out with Peanut. Suddenly, 22 shots rang out. Peanut came back on his own, soaked in red. Diamond's body was found not long after, with 22 gunshot wounds. During the investigation, police collected several pieces of evidence. They found text messages where Frank begged Diamond not to reveal their relationship or his involvement with the other girl. Family members and the other girl provided witness statements. Surveillance cameras captured activity at the field. Shell casings at the scene matched a gun linked to Frank. GPS data from a device he wore while on bond showed his location. Frank was taken into custody about 6 days later. He was released on a $250,000 bond and placed under house arrest. In April 2022, he was accused of breaking his house arrest by visiting a church on a Monday. His bond was revoked. His trial was set for October 16, 2023. He did not show up, saying he had been injured in a four-wheeler accident. A warrant was issued. He was found in a hospital wearing a sling and brought to court in restraints. Why did he fire so many times? Prosecutors said it was jealousy and a need to control. They noted that he reloaded during the encounter. Firing 22 rounds showed he was determined to carry out the act. Rather than go to full trial, Frank agreed to plead guilty. In October 2023, at age 19, he received a 45-year term. He must serve at least half, 22 and a half years, before he can ask for parole. Immediately after his plea, the courtroom broke into chaos. Diamond's mother, Ana Machado, spoke about her loss and called Frank a monster. She stood up and moved toward him. Her uncle joined her. Frank's mother stepped in and pushed Ana. Bailiffs intervened. One person was tased. The uproar distracted deputies and allowed another defendant in a nearby courtroom to slip away. Afterward, Ana apologized to the judge. She said, "It was wrong of us, and I apologize to the judge. I'm so sorry. This should never happen." She added that she hopes to let go of her anger someday. Despite the chaos, she stated, "Finally, my daughter has justice, knowing Frank will be behind bars for decades." For the formal sentencing hearing, court officials increased security. More than a dozen armed deputies were present. All recording devices were banned. Some family members did not attend because they had received threats. Fernando Amaya was a 17-year-old young man from West Houston. In May 2025, he faced allegations of serious anger issues. Public records show he had 2 earlier charges for causing serious harm. One count involved a family member. The other involved a weapon. His exact birthday and family background were not made public. Before the March incident, Amaya had shown a pattern of aggressive behavior. He was already charged twice with causing serious harm. Court documents say he threatened his girlfriend and himself just hours before the shooting. That threat came after he suspected she was unfaithful. On March 18, 2025, Amaya entered an apartment at the Alif Square complex. He carried an AK-47-style rifle. He fired nearly 100 rounds, at least 84. He meant to target an 18-year-old male he thought his 17-year-old girlfriend had been seeing. He injured the wrong person instead. A 41-year-old man, Marcos Cotto, passed in the blast. Another person was hit in the buttocks. 4 other people were inside and walked away unharmed. Amaya and a second gunman then fled in a white full-size SUV. Jealousy and suspicion drove Amaya's actions. He let his anger build instead of seeking help or talking things through. He chose force over calm discussion. Could someone have noticed his warning signs sooner? His past charges and that day's threats point to a chance for intervention that went missed. By the latest reports, Amaya was formally charged in connection with the fatal shooting and with 2 counts of causing serious harm with a weapon. Another 17-year-old, Christopher Portillo Luna, faced related charges in separate Harris County courts. A bail hearing set bond at $275,000 to cover all counts. It's not clear whether bail was granted or denied. The next teenage girls walked through the park. 6 gang members followed. Only one tip led police to the truth. Efrain Perez was 17 years old on the night of June 24, 1993. He showed up with 5 other members of the Black and White gang in Houston's Oak Forest area. None of them had ever gone through a gang ritual like this before. Perez did not have any known record with the juvenile courts. That changed that night. He grew up in a poor neighborhood where joining a gang felt like a way to belong. On that evening, he and the others held a harsh initiation for a new member named Raul Villarreal. They drank beer and showed off until late at night. Around 11:30 p.m., the gang saw 2 girls walking home through T.C. Jester Park. One was 14-year-old Jennifer Ertman. The other was 16-year-old Elizabeth Pena. Perez and the group spotted them in the dark. Peter Cantu grabbed Pena and forced her down a slope. Ertman ran back to help her friend. Derek O'Brien and Jose Medellin stopped her. Then 5 of the gang members, including Perez, carried out repeated non-consensual acts against both girls. This went on for over an hour. 14-year-old Venancio Medellin did not join in. At first, Pena watched Perez harm Ertman and started to cry. Then Cantu told them to move the girls into a wooded area. O'Brien and Villarreal used a belt and a shoelace to tighten around Ertman's neck. Pena was forced to witness it. After that, Perez and others did the same to Pena. They applied pressure until both girls stopped moving. 4 days later, on June 28, 1993, police found the girl's remains. The tip came from Joe Cantu, Peter's brother. He was alarmed by his brother's bloody clothes and his bragging about what had happened. All 6 gang members were caught soon after. In September 1994, Perez went to adult court. He faced a capital-level charge of taking a life, a count for a serious non-consensual violation, and a charge related to unlawful restraint. Witnesses, including Venancio, said Perez had restrained Peña and took part in the act. Medical experts described injuries consistent with intense physical force, including broken bones, pressure to the neck, and other signs of trauma. On September 15, 1994, the jury found Perez guilty on every count. At that time, Texas law allowed the harshest sentence even for someone under 18. The jury asked for that sentence, and the judge agreed. Perez tried to overturn the decision through appeals. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals denied relief in October 1996. His state petitions failed. In 2002, a federal court also refused further review. The U.S. Supreme Court chose not to hear his appeal. Then in 2005, the Supreme Court ruled in Roper v. Simmons that youth under 18 could not receive the harshest sentence. Texas law changed right away. Perez's sentence was switched to life in prison, with a chance for parole after 35 years. He will be eligible for parole on October 10, 2029. What drove Perez to join in such cruelty? Was he fully aware of the risks, or was he swept up in the gang's pressure and drinks? His case still lingers in the courts. He remains behind bars until at least 2029 when parole can be considered. Christian Gasca Martinez was 17 and lived in southeast Houston. He went to high school in the Meadowbrook-Allendale area. In the weeks before August 10, 2024, Martinez is said to have stalked a 16-year-old girl. She was the stepdaughter of Osvaldo Casas. Court papers say he made anonymous calls and sent messages. He also posted online about getting payback. He left voicemails threatening to shoot up the girl's home. When she blocked his number, he kept calling anonymously. He then physically harmed and held her against her will. This made her stop all contact. Prosecutors say his motive was revenge. He felt angry and obsessed after she rejected him. He did not want to hurt her alone, but wanted to hurt her family. He chose to target her stepfather. Just after midnight on August the 10th, 2024, near 611 Loper Street, neighbors told Osvaldo Wally Casas, 37, about a car parked near his house. Earlier that night, someone had egged and flower-bombed their vehicle. Casas went outside to check. Martinez stayed and fired his gun. Casas managed to stumble back inside but then collapsed. His wife, Judith Molina, who was 8 months pregnant, tried CPR. When paramedics arrived, they found that he did not survive. On October 17, 2024, law officers arrested Martinez. He was booked into Harris County Jail. He faces the most serious charge for causing someone's passing in the 209th State District Court. At early hearings, he chose to appear by video. His lawyer spoke for him in court. A judge first set bond at $200,000 because of the stalking and revenge motive. Casas's family said they were furious about the threats they had gotten. During one hearing, Martinez blew kisses toward the gallery. Because of that behavior, a judge raised his bond to $2 million. Court files do not show a full trial record or a final decision. As of late July 2025, Martinez was still waiting for his trial and a possible sentencing hearing. No outcome is publicly known. Christian Miller was a teenager living in Houston, Texas. On the evening of June 15, 2022, 59-year-old Anthony Merchant was found unresponsive in the street outside a home in the Skyway area near 8228 Swiss Lane. He had suffered several gunshot wounds. He was taken to HCA Houston Healthcare Clear Lake Hospital. There, medical staff determined he did not survive. Authorities say anyone involved left the scene right away. Investigators spent months looking into what happened. Detectives reviewed video footage and followed various leads. They eventually identified 20-year-old Shane Henry as a suspect. Their work led them to 2 minors, one of whom was Miller, who was 16 at the time. On March 15, 2024, Miller was moved to adult court. He faces charges for the most serious level of homicide. He was placed in Harris County Jail under adult custody. The other 16-year-old also faces the same homicide charge but remains in juvenile court. Henry, then 20, faces the same charge as well. Public records do not link Miller or the others to earlier wrongdoing. No reason for this act has been shared by investigators or prosecutors. There is no record of any statement from Miller or his co-accused explaining why it happened. We still wonder why Miller took part. So far, no motive has been made public through court papers or news reports. We also wonder if Merchant knew the suspects beforehand. Available information shows no prior connection between them. As of now, no trial has taken place in Miller's case. Records show he has been certified as an adult. His case is set in the 174th State District Court. At 14, the next individual broke in. At 18, he broke parole. Benny Simmons lived in Southwest Houston. He was already on probation at just 14 for a string of thefts. On November 5th, 2021, Simmons went into an apartment in Southwest Houston. It belonged to 21-year-old Shaka Haywood. Court papers say he planned to steal from Haywood. During that theft, he fired his gun 8 times. Haywood did not survive. When police asked, Simmons admitted he was on probation for earlier thefts. Why did Simmons take such a drastic step? Was it simply a theft gone wrong? Or was there something deeper driving him? Everything points to his plan to steal. But firing 8 times felt more than just a theft. It showed a harsh level of detachment. Haywood's mother, Deidre Stewart, later said, "He fired at my son 8 times with no sign of remorse." That raises a chilling question. At only 14, did Simmons understand what he had done? Or was he deeply detached from the outcome? Despite his age, Simmons faced the most serious possible charge for taking a life during another felony. He also faced a serious theft charge. Texas law allows someone his age to be tried in this way when the victim is over 10 and the act happens during another felony. His case moved through juvenile court, but drew wide attention. In September 2022, a judge in juvenile court found Simmons responsible. He received a 20-year term under the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. That means he was to stay in youth facilities until he turned 34, unless he earned parole sooner. Social media and news outlets were stunned when Simmons won early release in December 2024. He had served only about 2 years and 3 months. The victim's mother spoke out again. 2.5 years? I don't see any justice here. Only months after leaving the facility, now 18, Simmons was accused of physically hurting and taking valuables from an 81-year-old woman while on parole. That case reignited the debate over whether he should ever have been let out so early. Douglas Alexander Herrera Hernandez was part of MS-13 in Houston and Missouri City, Texas. He was born around 1996 or 1997. Little is known about his family or early life. Reports focus on his role in the gang. He used several names, including Alexander Hernandez and Terror. By 2017, he was on Texas's top 10 most wanted list for 2 homicides. One of those was a 2016 incident. He was arrested in Arlington, Virginia. At the time, he was with his girlfriend and their infant. On June 13, 2016, Herrera, Hernandez, and other gang members set a trap. They lured 16-year-old Estuar Quinones to Buffalo Run Park in Missouri City, Fort Bend County, Texas. They thought he had seen too much. Under the promise of smoking cannabis, they drew him out around 11 p.m. Some hid in the bushes. Others led him to a bench. Then 2 people stepped out and opened fire. Quinones was hit at least 15 times, including shots to the head. Herrera Hernandez later told the court he had contacted gang leaders in El Salvador for approval. That showed how closely he followed the gang's rules. The reason was simple. The gang feared Quinones might speak up. He had seen others carry out harmful actions. Leaders worried he would share what he knew. Herrera Hernandez did more than join in. He helped plan the operation. He faced charges of capital homicide. Even though the event happened in Fort Bend County, prosecutors moved the trial to Harris County for resources. The trial ended on May 1, 2021. A jury found him guilty. He received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. This means he will remain behind bars for life. District Attorney Kim Ogg said this sentence was part of a larger effort to weaken MS-13 in Houston. She said those who carry out such acts must stay in custody. At just 20 years old, Herrera Hernandez chose loyalty to a dangerous group over any chance at a different path. Why he reached out to leaders in El Salvador that night remains unclear. Was it loyalty, fear, or a bid for status? That question lingers. He did more than follow orders. He set the plan in motion by seeking permission from overseas leaders. In court, jurors heard how he coordinated each step. This showed he was deeply involved, not just a bystander. Since his sentence, he has stayed in prison without hope of release. Other participants received terms ranging from 20 years to life. His sentence is the strictest. By August 2022, every person involved in that ambush had been sentenced. Estuar Quinones' life ended in that park. He was seen as a threat because he could share what he knew. The gang's decision to silence him changed many lives that night. Angel Elizalde was 17 and lived in the Galena Park area of East Harris County, Texas. On a Sunday afternoon in March of 2025, 16-year-old Jaden Alexander Solis was found with gunshot wounds at a Galena Park Recreation Center basketball court. He did not survive. Angel Elizalde was taken into custody soon after, in connection with the shooting. Several people who saw what happened said they recognized Elizalde as the person who fired the weapon. Security cameras at the recreation center recorded important footage around the time of the event. Public records show no prior incidents or links to any groups for Angel. There are no reports of earlier arrests or legal problems. That does not rule out the possibility of sealed juvenile records or information kept out of the news. That afternoon, Jaden was playing basketball when Angel reportedly opened fire. The reason for the shooting remains unknown. It is not clear if it started over a disagreement during the game or if something personal had happened earlier. Officials have not released any motive or mentioned a rivalry or threat. Angel was booked on charges related to Jaden's passing and later indicted in the 337th District Court of Harris County. As of now, there is no word in public sources about the trial's outcome, any court decisions, or comments from Angel himself. He may still be going through steps like an initial hearing, transfer discussions, or other pre-trial actions. It is not yet known whether he is being handled in juvenile court or adult court, and there is no public record of a plea or ruling.